do is push the button. Go ahead. I gotta move this. I gotta put this down.
Oh, I did it already.
No, I gotta put it down. I have to move the whole thing.
You gonna move it?
Yeah.
Oh. Can I move it?
Yeah.
Later?
No, I gotta do it right now. I gotta put it away. Here we go.
The Truth with Gwen Azama-Edwards on Goliath Radio.
Roll yourself so I can make sure it's done. Stan, you've been sitting much too long, much too long. Welcome, 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 welcome to Truth, a radio program designed with you in mind, a program whose sole purpose is to empower you, our listeners, for information leads to knowledge, and knowledge is power. And as always, I want to empower you to take control of your life, those things that impact you, your family, and your community, as always, too. Once you go to the website at www.gwen-truth.com so you can access all those resource listings that will connect you to your municipalities, your county agencies, state agencies, federal agencies, and advocacy groups. Also, you can go there and take part in the query that we have going now, where I'm asking you if you believe that Medicare, the age at which you can sign up for Medicare, which is currently 65, should be increased to 67. You know, they continue looking at ways that they can, you know, federal government can cut back on cost, and whenever they do that, they're cutting back on whatever they're providing to you. But anyway, go to the website so you can chime in on that and let us know what you think in regards to the age at which you can start collecting and actually receive Medicare benefits. All right? Shout out tonight very quickly. Martin Luther King birthday, Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday. Celebrations are occurring this weekend. In fact, there's a banquet tonight, and my guest is, as soon as he leaves here, is shooting right over to the banquet at the Hilton, and that will be going on tonight for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., isn't it? Indeed. Celebration. Yes, yes. Shout out to all of you who will be participating in the various activities that will be going on, who will use this time to not only learn more about Dr. Martin Luther King, a great nonviolent leader, advocate for the people. I mean, there are all kinds of titles and labels that we have put on him, but what you need to know is that he was a man and the man of the hour during the time that he lived and worked for the needs, for the betterment of all people, because he knew that to the extent that any person is held down, then we're all held down. To the extent that we exalt and lift up others, we are all lifted up, okay? So we do join all of you in celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday and all of his accomplishments, his dream that is still yet to be fully realized, but as we live and as we work toward accomplishing those things that he has set forth for us in terms of goals of coming together, working together, becoming one nation, truly one nation under God. To the extent that we work toward that purpose, we're all then working to accomplish his overall dream for America and the world. Amen, amen, and amen. My guest tonight is Anthony Woods. He is the new Executive Director and CEO for the Housing Authority of Daytona Beach. And I'm just going to call you Anthony, if that's okay.
That's right. Thank you very kindly.
Okay. Anthony, what I've learned, because I know you replaced Pete Gamble, and you're not all that new now. How long have you been in your position now?
Since March 15,
okay.
2012. I've been in position as the Executive Director, CEO of the Housing Authority of the City of Daytona Beach.
Okay, so actually almost a year. March will be a year then, so you've had time to not only get to know the turf and the territory, you've actually had time to really get to know some of the issues and problems that we look at in terms of housing, which is in my opinion, housing is that one thing that people in this country have always looked toward as as having arrived. Once you own your own home, it's like you have then almost like bitten off a big part of what we consider as the American dream.
Indeed.
And there are some who said that the American dream has become now the American nightmare,
Right.
based upon what's going on with foreclosures and everything else. But I'd like to start with you sharing with our listeners a little bit about yourself, and then to talk about the accomplishments that have occurred with the Housing Authority. Some may have occurred, prior to your coming here, because it takes a while for things to work their way through the system. A lot of people don't know that, but that is the case. And then we're going to go into some more specifics in terms of housing, in terms of community, because the Housing Authority of Daytona Beach actually does serve more than just the Daytona Beach area. That's my understanding.
That's correct. We are responsible for Volusia County as a whole. While our jurisdiction and our lines may be distinctly drawn, we also partner with neighboring agencies to ensure that the necessary rental assistance is provided, whether it be by port ins where we accept vouchers from other agencies, or port outs where other agencies accept our vouchers for administration. Nonetheless, we ensure that all persons that are eligible and have a voucher in hand are in receipt of the necessary benefits that they are afforded.
Wonderful. Now, you came here from where, and how many years of experience did you have in the housing arena, so to speak? I know that a lot of that was in the paper and when they were interviewing you and allowing people a chance to get to know you, but a lot of people don't read stuff. Okay, it's not that they can't read, these days we just don't read. It's just so easy to listen to the radio or watch it on TV or whatever else, but we don't really, even if it's out there, we don't get it. So we're going to tell people now about your background.
Absolutely. Actually, I began in the affordable housing industry, as I called it, back in October of 1994 as a property manager with Mississippi Regional Housing Authority number 8, which is or at least at that time, was the absolute largest housing authority in the state of Mississippi. I was there in position as property manager for approximately 3.5 to 4 years before being promoted to management coordinator. And what that did was made me responsible for the 24 managers, property managers that we had on staff, in addition to the 89 maintenance personnel. We were responsible for 14 different counties, so we were wide and varied, which indeed lended to our being the largest at that time in the state of Mississippi. Right at or about the 5.5-year mark, I was asked to accept an executive directorship in Alabama. And upon being approached by the then field office director, and through much prayer and supplication, I did indeed accept the position of executive director at the Greene County Housing Authority. And I was there until, if you recall, the heels of Hurricane Katrina. At or about that time, I received a phone call from my previous president CEO in Mississippi requesting my assistance in helping to rebuild what we had previous. And in doing so, all persons, Board of Commissioners, staff, and residents alike, I believe that the empathy and sympathy was so great at that time that they were all understanding. Not to mention that we had lost our family home at that time in Pass Christian, Mississippi, where my mother was residing at 386 Morton Avenue, but the whole city of Pass Christian, Mississippi was obliterated as a result of Hurricane Katrina. And I accepted that call. I answered that call, and I returned at or about September of following that storm's year, which it took us quite some time, but we were warranted an opportunity to be able to expedite many of the visions that we had shared and had prior to my departure. And that was probably the greatest benefit realized by that agency at that time, was to be able to have successful requests being met in the way of waivers and things of that nature as a result of the storm's damage. We were able to rebuild bigger, better, and make it more affordable and less, if you will, dependent upon federal subsidy. Because most of the properties that were redeveloped were mixed income developments, which afforded for fair market rents and voucher holders and things of that nature. And it did not lend to the quote-unquote easily detectable or easily discernible public or affordable housing. It was housing.
Which has become a goal. Is that still a goal?
Absolutely, very much so.
Yes.
And I believe that that's one of the greatest things that you know, throughout this industry, that God blessed me with the vision to look beyond the present and to show that, you know, just because these homes are affordable does not mean that they are any less desirable
Or
than
substandard.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. And we are not proponents of substandard housing. We are not housing of last resort. We are affordable housing. And as a result of that, we want to ensure that we are just as, if not more, competitive than those homes in market and multifamily rate units in the private industry.
Wonderful. You know, that reminds me of that statement that there's always a silver lining even in the darkest cloud. And even though people lost, and hopefully were their lives lost as well, or
Indeed.
just a few, yeah. Well, that's sad, but still, with every dark cloud, there is a silver lining, and the silver lining sounds like, in part, for the area where you got the opportunity to go back and help rebuild. They were able to rebuild, and as you were saying, they were able to cut through the red tape and really take care of business. Probably some of the red tape that you had dealt with for years, you know, the way government can drag its feet, you know, and even though, you know, people get upset about the government dragging its feet, they don't realize that it's all those regulations that Congress actually and others kind of put in there that makes it and prolongs the ability of people to be able to actually directly help someone, but to be able then to have an area that is built up, rebuilt from the ground up.
Right.
Something new, something crisp, and something that allow the people to have the opportunity to feel better about the area, but also themselves, because I think your environment sometimes can impact how you feel.
Oftentimes it does.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And so that's just an awesome thing to be able to use what God had given you, the opportunities He's given you, and allow the skills and knowledges and abilities you gained to be able to now go back and help the area where you live.
Indeed.
Where you lost your home. Goodness
Absolutely.
gracious.
One of the things we aspire to do, we aspire to educate the community as a whole, to let everyone know that we are good neighbors. And it is our intent to not decrease property value, but to increase it. It is our intent to ensure that we are producing products and residents in our communities that are conducive to the city's goals and admissions for what they see long term.
I feel like saying hallelujah because you know that, I'm sure you know that people see it as the opposite.
Sure.
And so you're really trying to change an image and a stereotype that's been there for many years. I can remember going to visit my niece in Tennessee, and she was showing us and explaining to us how in that area they had torn down the old housing, and you look at it now, I mean, it's something better than what you see, better, I will repeat, than what you see in terms of apartment complexes around here.
Absolutely.
And I think that's fantastic because the people deserve that.
Indeed.
You know,
Indeed.
and that gives them an opportunity to do some things, and again, not only feel better about themselves, but actually do some things that are actually make them contributing in the community.
Absolutely. And it lends to the making whole the community as a whole. Because when an individual is proud of a place that they call home, they're more susceptible to care for it as if it were their own.
Sound like my campaign
so
now.
that's what we're aspiring to do. We want to ensure that, you know, that when you see market property that is competitive and that is appealing to the eye, and that is a property that you yourself would readily state, I wouldn't mind living there.
Right.
That is what we are aspiring to achieve, and we want to build. Sad to say that much of our inventory is right now 40 plus years, and you can only do so much to the exterior while you're limited, almost restricted in its entirety on the interior because of the type of construction.
Right.
So to that end, we are seeking to do just that. We want to upgrade, modernize, but the only ways and means that we can do that is through new construction.
Now, we're familiar with Hope 6 and the fabulous buildings that have come out of that on International Speedway Boulevard, and then other housing that you have on the South Street area. What do they call those, townhouses?
Yes.
Yes. And we know that, and then there's other, well, no, those are the two major areas that you guys have been able to actually see come to fruition, and they've been there a few years.
Yes, the three that you're mentioning are Villages of Halifax,
Mm-hmm.
Lakeside Village, and Pine Haven.
Right, right, yes, and they are gorgeous. They are gorgeous. But there were plans to do more, and I'm sure money ran out, you know, as it sometimes does. Do you foresee any more of that happening? Because I know in the area that's off of actually Dr. Martin Luther King.
Right.
Or Mary McLeod Bethune, off of Mary McLeod Bethune Boulevard.
You're speaking of the old Daytona Villages.
Yes,
which is,
yes.
what we're referencing now as Villages of Halifax 2.
Yes, and there's a lot of vacant land that's there.
Indeed.
Where some buildings have been torn down.
Right.
And there were plans, I think, to do multi-level and single family and all of that. Do you guys see any of that coming to fruition anytime soon?
As resources allow, and as resources afford us an opportunity, we are very aggressive in our plans. We are very aggressive in our seeking of dollars to be able to complete the initiatives that we have before us. Some of the things that we plan on doing have been recently publicized through media, and that was the Veterans Village, if you recall.
Yes.
That's basically dealing with a 100-unit build that we want to ensure that the community understands that it is not a continuum of care with a few houses. It is houses with continuum of care. And to that end, I think it's necessary that we convey the point that this is residential housing we're speaking of, and the intent is to target, if you will, those homeless veterans who many are unable to tap into their own resources because they have no fixed address. And as a result of the constituents that we've been able to communicate with, you know, we've had a tremendous amount of support, and what we're seeking to do is have a multi-level facility, basically with the residential apartments being above the first level, and all of the first level having basically all of the continuum of care needs, if it's counseling, if it's physical therapy, if it's legal, whatever the case may be. We want all of those offices set up on the first level, and then the higher levels will there bear the actual residential apartments.
I know they say that for the large number of, and it's over 3,000 from what I gather, of homeless that we have in just the Volusia County area, that a good 40% of them are veterans.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. And you know, while many of the numbers are thwarted because no one really knows the true count, because even beating the hedges and bushes, we miss a certain number. But to that end, everyone that I've encountered as it pertains to veterans and this initiative have been very supportive.
Yes, because they also need, you know, as a part of the president's gun control measures, which I applaud, and I think some of the things that are being done by the NRA and others, you know, especially targeting his children, that's just awful, just terrible, and I'll leave that there. But I know a part of that, in that initiative, he's talking about the need for mental health counseling.
Sure.
And he's also, I know, even in what they can refer to as Obamacare, and I'll say that because he says, he said, I'll accept that, Obamacare. But even in that legislation, he really talks about the need for and provides for mental health services. So I'm sure that would be key as a part of what would be provided for those veterans as well. Now, from what I read, and I know that Representative Dwayne Taylor, yes, is big on that, and he's helping to push it, and I know the former Executive Director Pete Gamble is tied with that as well.
Absolutely.
And then yourself, and then there are others that have come on board who have said that they support it. And as you stated, so that's really fantastic. But I knew you guys, you were looking at a location, and then there were like a couple other locations you were looking for as well. Have you narrowed that down at all, or?
Not really. We are still in the search phase. We do have a couple of locations in mind. However, what we want to do is ensure that it's in the best interest of not only the occupants of the property, but the city as a whole, and it's conducive to what the city's goals are, as well as the agency's goals. But yes, indeed, we do have a tremendous amount of support, and we've gone to Tallahassee and met with all representatives of all agencies that would be involved in this initiative. We've met and spoken with a lot of the local representatives of each agency, and all have been very supportive of the initiative as a whole.
Okay, now, I started out talking about the area that's covered with the Housing Authority. Even though you said it's the Housing Authority of Daytona Beach, you actually cover a much larger area. In fact, I recall someone, I think Pete at one time said that you actually go into some parts of Flagler. Do you, or is it just, what is that geographic area that you cover?
Well, the hard lines would probably put us within the confines of Flagler County. However, we may have some vouchers there that were either received or just simply being administrated by other agencies.
Yes.
But the hard lines put us in the heart of the city because, as you well know, the county do have their own jurisdictions and allotments of rental assistance vouchers as well. So we are not as confined as many may think. However, the mere fact that we do have indeed the nonprofit that falls underneath the Housing Authority, that expands our jurisdiction, if you would, nationwide. Because of the fact that it is not the Housing Authority, but it has the capacity to be able to work outside of the confines of our jurisdiction.
Now, expand on that somewhat, the nonprofit.
Well, the nonprofit, basically, we have two, if you will. The first of which is the Development Corporation, and that is solely intended to ensure that we have a ways and means to build new construction and or construction that is not necessarily, and it even may be ACC or annual contributions contract properties. It's a conduit and an avenue and a vehicle that the agency utilizes to ensure development. And on the other hand, we also have Southeast Housing Compliance Corporation. Basically, that will serve as an administrative and management type vehicle to be able to assist and even provide counseling, housing counseling, and things of that nature as it pertains to being able to generate ways and means of revenue for the nonprofit through the Housing Authority.
Oh, okay. So these avenues allow you to also, I would think, tap into other dollars.
Exactly.
That allow you to be able to not just stay in that same mode or footprint of what is commonly referred to as...
And depending upon the same dwindling resources to be able to operate at a higher capacity. So that is indeed a ways and means for us to try and expand, if you will, the net to be casted out to try and bring in resources to support the agency's affordable housing initiatives.
Now, I know when Hope 6 was developed and as that program was being constructed, that some of the people had to be I don't want to say
Relocated?
displaced, relocated, yes, to some other areas. And I know that several of them did not want to, after being gone for I guess almost a year or so, they really did not want to come back into the area because they had started new lives.
Certainly.
And I'm sure for some people it is better that you leave some areas and start anew. Because it makes it easier for you to actually to make that that bridge to where it is that you want to go, you know, moving up to, you know, somewhat higher level.
Right.
So for those who did come back though, do you know what percentage that was? Was it like 30–40% or?
I would say at or about that much. And ironically enough, that is not abnormal. What you find during the process of relocating and or even modernization, if you will, for an extensive modernization, if it calls as well for a temporary relocation or permanent relocation, what you find is those who resisted the greatest are least likely to return. And that is because they are complacent and they are homesteaders, and once they get and acclimated to a certain area, therein they reside. But we had about roughly 35 to 40%, and that is a little bit less actually than the total number of ACC units that we have within all three of those Hope 6 properties that you referenced. And earlier by name they were Pine Haven, Lakeside, and Villages of Halifax.
Right. And the and as you said, it's not unusual because those who were ended up relocating from Katrina and places like that, a lot of them never went back to New Orleans or anything either. They just stayed where they were. Now, for those, do you have then vacancies that are existing in any of the locations where you mentioned, where you have those beautiful areas? And then I know one of them, when we had what they call the 100-year flood, I was actually out of state there when that happened, but when they had the 100-year flood, I know one of the properties ended up being flooded as well, and ended up with you guys having to do some renovations and the like, which isn't unusual. I mean, you know, when we moved in our new house, 3 years later, had a tornado, we had $28,000 worth of damage, and, you know, again, silver lining in a dark cloud. But those things do happen, and I know the city is taking steps so that the flooding issues, some of the flooding issues in areas they'll be able to deal with, and they won't have to revisit that type of an issue again. But do you have vacancies, and then what are the qualifications for being able to actually live in the locations that you mentioned, and are there waiting lists?
Well, yes, all of our properties operate under a waiting list, and vacancies come few and far between. We have and maintain a high occupancy rate. The last check, we were right at 98.9% in those three properties that were mentioned, and right at 99.3% in the other ACC units that we have in our inventory. The qualifications are pretty much standard, and all of which are conveyed on our website. And you can share that. Okay, and our website is www.dbhafl.org, and there you'll find information on all of the agency's programs. We have two core programs, and that is, first and foremost, public housing program, which I often refer to as affordable housing. And we also have Section 8, or the Housing Choice Voucher Program, which I refer to as assisted housing. A spin-off of these programs is our FSS program, which is family self-sufficiency. We are very much advocates and proponents of encouraging all of our clientele to reach their greatest potential. And we do that through enforcing basically community service hour requirements in our affordable housing program. However, those can be satisfied in a number of ways and means. If individuals are either elderly and or disabled to the capacity that they are unable to perform community service, then they are exempt. In addition, if an individual is working, if an individual is actively engaged in school or some type of technical training program, they too are exempt. And our FSS programs qualify as that as well. So if an individual is committing to be able to reach the goals that they set for themselves, then that too will exempt them from that. However, one must understand that we are going to hold them accountable as they hold us accountable to ensure that we are maintaining their escrows and the like.
Well, I'm glad you shared that, because I'm sure there are same stereotype that people have about people in public housing, and you call it affordable housing, and automatically even people on welfare or whatever else. We know this when we heard it during the election, you know, about how these lazy people just letting other people take care of them and all this kind of stuff. And from what you're sharing, all those individuals, unless there is a really verifiable reason as to why they can't do community service or something else and actually give back, they're required to do so.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes. And I think, you know, oftentimes those numbers and our discussions are misleading. I think if history were to reveal itself and it show the actual end users of the resources of affordable housing, then people will be very shocked and in awe as to who actually receives and or have received like or similar benefits. And we ensure that we are working within the confines of all federal regulations, but at the same time we are encouraging all of our clientele and applicants alike to do what they need to do to best improve the quality of their lives. Because just as certain as we are going to give them keys to a unit that is in good repair, I expect that when I inspect that unit, that I find it in like or similar fashion. And such as it is with the quality of life with regards to the community as a whole. Because just as certain as, you know, a good community can start with one accountable family, and the reverse and the exact opposite can be held true. Right. So to that end, we hold everyone accountable. And we want to ensure that we are not, through our screening process, that we are not causing any unnecessary disturbances within our communities. And going forward, you know, we have been met with a number of challenges, but none of which the staff has not responded to favorably. And to that end, we're very proud of the efforts that all staff has made to date, because we all know that change is not easy, even though it's constant. It's not easy. So at the same time, you know, we are embarking upon a new time, a new day, to ensure that affordable housing is deemed as quality housing as well. You know, you should not be able to readily discern the type of property based upon its aesthetic appearance. Right, right. You should be able to look at it and be able to say, wow, that is an awesome property there. I wonder what it would take for me to live there. And that's the effect that we're looking for, and that's the challenge with regards to obtaining and acquiring resources that we're working towards to be able to build a like or similar build.
Now, you and I, when we were talking earlier before the program began, and my question has to do with programs that the Housing Authority may have and provide for youth, for young people who are associated with the Housing Authority. And you shared with me that it was your desire really to help young people when you were teaching, because you were a teacher for, what did you say, 4.5 years?
Correct.
Before actually getting into the housing arena. You noticed and felt a need, and you saw a need as expressed by the young people who did not have you know, adequate housing, or some probably even no housing. Right. And wanting to meet that need as you felt was your calling then to go in that direction, and others, your mentors and the like, who led you there as well. What types of things does the Housing Authority provide at this point for young people? And if you want to expand more on, you know, what brought you here in terms of the youth side of that, you can as well.
Well, we have 3 neighborhood network programs that we operate. We have one that's located in Palmetto Park, another in Northwood Village, and then the third one is in Pine Haven. That is basically a resource center to afford an opportunity for youth and elderly and the community at large, if you will, to go in and access computers and utilize it as a resource center to pull down any information that they may need as far as it pertains to homework and things of that nature.
Or even seeking a job, I would think.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. That is very much what most are utilized for throughout the week. In addition, we also have a partnership that we recently embarked upon with the city's Leisure Services Department for computer training for seniors. And we're doing that and we're performing that at the Dickerson Center. One of the things that we were able to do this past year was to participate in the state's public housing basketball tournament. It was held in Tampa this year. And it was a sort of quick and round-away finish, but we were able to send a representation there from the agency. It is my goal to be able to identify resources that we can have readily available and budgeted for like or similar events. You know, it came on the heels of my recent release from the hospital at that time, unfortunately. So I had to move and act pretty quickly and gather up as many eligible. And what made the youth eligible for me was first and foremost their grade point averages, their conduct, to ensure that they were indeed residents and live within our property to be able to properly represent. And so we were blessed to be able to send a representation of the Housing Authority to Tampa.
Wonderful.
But going forward, you know, we are seeking to identify, again, resources that will lend to our being able to do that on a regular basis and have those monies budgeted at the same time.
And my feeling is that whatever we do, however we do it in terms of working with our youth, it's an investment.
Absolutely.
It's an investment in them and in their future, and it's an investment in our community, and that's something that we should all just grab hold to. And I know, I'll tell you a bank you can contact who has expressed to me that they have a desire in that regard in terms of working with youth, in terms of their time and their funds. But I know there are resources out there that can and will do that. So if we have listeners and this is something that you'd like to do, or you're a part of an organization that would like to help the Daytona Beach Housing Authority in terms of working with the youth and getting them involved in something positive, because you know, if you don't get them involved in something positive, then that means that, you know,
they will find
what do they say, what empty hands or whatever, the devil's
idle mind.
Idle mind. Hey, there we go. But we want to do good things for and with our young people, and show them that there's something positive and something that they can look forward to, and give them something positive that they can be a part of, as opposed to, you know, the negative that's out there in terms of gang activity and the like. So to the extent that anyone listening would like to be able to do that or wants to do that, please contact Anthony Woods with the Daytona Beach Housing Authority, and you know, you can call City Hall and get their number, or you can look it up in phone book or whatever, and he will give you the website again as well. But I think that's so key and so important, and with the computer training that you provide, not only for the younger people, but also for the elderly who, I mean, that's our means of conversation these days.
Absolutely.
Anymore. Though a lot of them still rely on the phone. My mom took training, computer training when she was 80.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
she took the training, and she had, you know, we got a computer and all that kind of stuff, and she just got so many emails that she just decided that's just too much. It's just too much. So she decided to go back to the old-fashioned way of her phone, which she loved. But it is really and truly something great for all ages, I think, to take part in and to receive that training, because we are in the computer, not just the computer age, we are in the electronic age. And you know, if our president showed us anything and is showing us a way to anything, it is that our making that nexus between, you know, the old style of communicating and getting into even if we have to be forced into the newer age of communication. And it's so key and so important for all that we do, because these same young people are being faced with that in school.
Absolutely, absolutely, on a daily basis.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Is there anything that we've not covered? We have about 2 more minutes left, and then you'll be on your way to the Martin Luther King banquet.
Okay, much appreciated. I wanted to, if I may, go back, Gwen, just for a moment. You brought up earlier the property off of Mary McLeod, and that is, again, I referenced as the villages of Halifax too, but I think it's necessary that I also state that that is NSP. It's a result of an NSP grant through the city, which is a neighborhood stabilization program grant. We've expended NSP 1, and we're now delving into the early stages of NSP 3, which will afford us to build 7 or 10% of the 70, the full bill that we are planning for that particular site. So that's the NSP dollars at work through the city.
And when will that be kicking off?
Well, we've already set the platform, and we've cleared, we've laid the sub-ground work, and we've already got the footprint of the first set of buildings.
Wonderful.
So yes, indeed, we're well underway there.
Okay, you've heard it here. And of course, and then the Veterans Complex that you're working on as well, so as well as continuing with what you have now, and a 90-some%. Wow.
And we do too. I think it's necessary to know that we have home ownership opportunities at 708 and 712 Vernon Street, so go on by and look at them and make an offer. I'm really ready, willing, and able to accept.
Oh, goodness.
And we also have property over at Bill Frank's Business Parkway, Loomis Avenue as well. So we're very busy and very hopeful of acquiring the needed resources to be able to do the bills that we foresee for these properties.
Wonderful, and as I said on every show, 2013 is the year. It will be a fantastic year of opportunity for everyone, and I'm just so happy that you have come and that you've shared with us this. I'm sure it's probably always been the vision, but I guess I haven't heard it articulated the way that you've shared it, such that people understand that what your goal is to actually put people into affordable housing throughout the community, not just have them bottled up in the same area, and to make it such that they will be, this affordable housing will be not discernible from other housing, because it will be of such a great quality, and such that the people also will not be discernible as, oh, those are housing, public housing people, etc. Because we're all the same. In the end, bottom line, we're all the same, and all desirous of the same things, and that is to have a part of that American dream, which is still alive, still well. And a lot of that is much of what Dr. Martin Luther King wanted for all of us. And that we look beyond the color of our skin and really start looking at the content of our character. And that's what it's all about. So I want to say to all of you as we go off the air, because there is a game that will be starting in the next 30 seconds.
Good houses make better homes. The Housing Authority of the City of Daytona Beach is a great place to live.
Wonderful. Website again?
www.dbhafl.org.
All right. You've been listening to Truth with Gwen Azama-Edwards. My guest, Anthony Woods, who is the Executive Director and CEO of the Daytona Beach Housing Authority. We want you to go to the website, www.gwen-truth.com. Again, enjoy the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Activities that are coming up in the next few days. He's heading for that tonight. Again, until the next time, be informed, be empowered, stand tall for that which is right and truthful. Again, this is Truth with Gwen Azama-Edwards. And like you, like the CEO and Executive Director for the Public Housing Authority in Daytona Beach, Anthony Woods, hey, we're still standing. You be blessed and have a great week.
Thank you.
Truth with your host, Gwen Azama-Edwards, exclusively every Thursday night on WLE 1390 Radio, Ormond Beach, Florida.
All right. Enjoy. Eat enough for all of us, okay?